Hey everyone, welcome back to another Godzilla Battle Line video, and I know what you're going to say, and I'm sorry, there is not going to be a tier list live stream at all this season. It's, I say it every time that the tier list streams always are the ones that get away from me, but this month, I wanted to do it this week, it's just there's so much going on, that I got going on this month, so apologies for the lack of streams, but October, my favorite, one of my favorite months of the year, Halloween season, spooky season, right? So we'll do the 3,000 subscriber special. We'll do a bunch for the month of October, but man, September I have been absolutely fucking slammed. So I'm just gonna do this tier list video here. As you can see, I've already pre-arranged the tier list. Now these characters that are already placed on the list are unchanged from last month. I could go on, this isn't a live stream. I could go on for an hour and a half talking about all these characters and where they place this season and why they place in the same spots that I put them in last season, but I didn't really think there was a need to, at least this season. A lot of it is largely unchanged. The balance patches going into this current season, not really too many. However, I'm expecting the balance adjustments for Season 17 to be dropping anytime either tonight or tomorrow, or the next day at the latest, right? So any time between the next 72 hours, we're getting the character for the next season and the balance patch for the next season, right? But I have a list of characters on the bottom that I want to change their positions and their rankings from last season. So I'll go into, in depth, talk about them. It'd kind of be a waste if I only just spent, 5 minutes talking about where I was going to put Zetton and Mefilas, right? But there are a few characters that I think that are going to be shifted around this season from where they were before. And I'll let you know, obviously, where they were prior. We'll start off with Mothra Leo. Last season, I put Mothra Leo at A tier, right? Not S tier. And the reason I said that is because I didn't think that they were good enough to be S tier. But I gotta say it, I think Leo is deserving of S tier. I think I was maybe a little too critical of Leo on the last go around, but man, every single deck that exists in Battleline, any meta slave deck has a Leo in it. It's either Batra and Leo, or Batra and Ultraman, or Batra, Leo, and Ultraman. The 5-cost flyer is too strong, right? Leo and Fire Rodan is even good. Fire Rodan, Ultraman, right? That didn't even have Leo in it. I don't know why I brought it up. But regardless, Mothra Leo is an incredible unit. And there's a huge Leo cult in my Discord. And I'm sure they're going to love it when they see that I put Leo in the S tier finally in the spot that they think he deserves. And I honestly, after playing this season, I mean, man, 7 out of 10 decks I face will have a Leo in it in some capacity, right? So I think that Mothra Leo is deserving of the S tier, not based out of usage, but just based out of the utility. It's like how King Caesar was in the high A tier, right, or mid A tier for the longest time because of the amount of damage he could do against the meta units. Now that all the meta units are in the air, Leo is filling that niche. Leo got a nice buff to all their stats, so big props to Mothra Leo this season, moving up out of A and into S. That's at least my personal feelings on the matter. Next is Hedorah. Now, Hedorah last season, I placed them about mid-A tier. I placed them right in between Space Godzilla and Biollante. I think that also I was downplaying Hedorah. I believe Hedorah is firmly planted somewhere along right here in this top 3 space. I'm going to put Hedorah... I'll put Hedorah ahead of Psychic Chorus this season, and you could call me out and say I'm wrong. I don't think I am. Hedorah is just too good, man. A lot of people were using King Ghidorah and Mecha King Ghidorah for big AoE. A lot of people were using Biollante for big AoE. Well, Biollante was nerfed a few months ago and hasn't ever really been the same, except for on London or maybe New York if you play the Edges, or All-Star Battle even, right? But that was a cheap AoE that was really good and really impressive on every battlefield, but now is more of a niche unit. King Ghidorah into Mecha King Ghidorah, very expensive, 7 cost, and then Mecha King Ghidorah's not really doing too much more than regular King Ghidorah, so it's makes your deck a little bit more expensive. You could go with Gigan 04 for a little bit of AoE, right? You can go with Jet Jaguar Singular Point for a little bit of AoE, but at the end of the day, they're just alright units. They're kind of getting mopped up by everything in the air since both Gigan 04 and Jet Jaguar cannot hit the air. Hedorah can hit the air. For 3 costs, you place the pre-evolution down and it evolves. It's almost a guaranteed evolution. Even in this meta with Leos running around, Hedorah flying form is almost always a guaranteed evolution. And then for 4 cost, Hedorah, the mature form, crazy damage. Really good, like surprisingly good range and really solid damage. The AoE pool is not a joke. It's a bit smaller than Biolante's AoE pool, right? But if you use Dimension Tide, it doesn't matter. For 8 cost, Hedorah and Dimension Tide, you're doing more than you would be doing with a King Ghidorah / Mecha King Ghidorah, right? Hedorah is just extremely impressive on the battlefield in a team fight. Hedorah could absolutely change the way that battle goes. And that is not an exaggeration. You know, you could have, you know, Mothra Leo, Batra, and Ultraman all duking it out, but as soon as that, you know, that X factor comes in, that Hedorah comes in there and just starts cleaning house. If they're not focused on Hedorah, she's going to take out that entire push. Very, very good unit. And even on death, now that the death asset has been fixed and it's doing the appropriate amount of damage it should, you know, whatever level 31 is doing, like 100 and some odd damage over, you know, every second for 5 seconds is ridiculous, right? Like 500 damage in 5 seconds is really, really good. Really, really good. So, Hedorah, I think I miscalculated on the Hedorah last season, and I think for sure that she belongs at least in the top 5 of the A tier units. I'm putting her in the middle of the top 3 because I do not know where she falls in the top 3. Yes, Anguirus is a really good tank, but Hedorah is also taking down a lot of these flying units, and especially, you know, the 5 cost flyers, Leo, Ultraman, Fire-Odan, and Batra. They all are going to get hit by that death pool also. No unit is safe from the death pool. So, huge ups to that. Next is Super X, and last season I put Super X in between Space Godzilla and Godzilla Ultima because I say range is the best stat in the game. This is true, and Super X does have a lot of it. However, Dimension Tide is cheaper, and Ultraman has very long range similar to Manila's range, and Ultraman can't be stunned unlike Manila, you know, and Super X can be stunned. Ultraman has kind of taken the spot of Super X, and the combination of Dimension Tide and Super X has kind of, you know, been dropping Super X out of relevancy. I still think Super X is a good unit, but I don't think it's as good as it was. I want to put Super X not in B. I don't think it's deserving of B yet, but I think its time in the sun is fading. And I want to put Super X somewhere down here. Somewhere either between Burning and Desg, or in between Biollante and Burning. I think maybe here is probably a good spot. It's dropped down. I'm going to put it here because I really do think that while Super X is an extremely good unit and you can still find a lot of really good use for it, there are a lot of counters going around wow. Speaking over myself. There's a lot of counters going around right now that are going to walk all over it. Trains is seeing a lot of play. Dimension Tide, Ultraman, Leo. You know, it was different when Super X wasn't really, you know, in a flyer meta, and Super X could pick off like Anguirus, GD9s, the Kamacuras, you know, all these other things on the ground, Caesar, right, Jet Jaguar. But now that everything is in the air, you know, Super X, you got to kind of play it smart. There's a lot more characters in the game with like really long range. Ghidorah has piercing. Earth has really long range and piercing. Ultraman is crazy cracked right now. Mothra Leo is going to run up on a Super X's, so you can definitely still play Super X well. I still enjoy using my Super X Ultima Manila deck because that's going to keep units at like a really far range, but Super X is struggling these days, guys, and it's only a matter of time before it drops out. But I like Super X. I'm not ready to move it into B yet. I think it's just getting into the low A. Kiryu. Now, Kiryu last season I had where Super X is now. And I'm going to put Kiryu up ahead one spot. Maybe here. But I think maybe here is probably good. Kiryu is seeing a lot more play these days. People have got the levels on him, and he's really good in a push. I still don't think he's as good AoE as, you know, Biollante or Hedorah. But the fact that you can place him anywhere on the map is huge, especially now with a lot of really fast flyers. You know, if you're using Fire-Odan and, you know, Mothra Leo, you could send them up and then have Kiryu meet them on the other end of the map, right? Ultraman is going to rush, you know, all the way to the other side, drop Kiryu down for one more cost, right? Mothra Leo, same thing. You know, you can just meet up a good push with Kiryu. Mogera also good for that, but there's just Kiryu with the missiles coming down and the AoE, that's really nice cleanup, especially on lower health units. And it's mostly the fact that he's not single target is what is putting him up over the edge. Now, Space Godzilla, I'm not knocking Space Godzilla by moving Space Godzilla down. Technically, Space Godzilla hasn't lost a spot on this tier list because I just swapped Kiryu and Super X. But mark my words, when Battery gets nerfed, Space Godzilla stocks going to the moon, baby. Alright, trains. I put trains in low A last season because I probably did that out of spite. Because I fucking... Man, God, the trains are so annoying. But I've been using them lately to pretty much exclusively take down Batras and energy bases, and I'll bite. It's pretty good. I'm putting it behind Ultima. Probably out of spite. But it's definitely up in the higher A. Ultima's still very good. But the trains are being used pretty effectively as like a scalpel, not a hammer, to take down pre-evos, the energy bases and all that. I will say, if you use it to take down a leader at the end of a push, fucking hate you. But that's besides the point. Really good damage. The energy buff to make it 3 instead of 5 saved it. And it's just going to keep seeing play until either it loses all its damage or it gets more expensive to play. But not Super X. The trains has moved. I'm moving them from the bottom to closer to the top. Still a little biased, so I don't want to make it into the top 5. I don't think it's a top 5 unit, but I think it's definitely a very versatile utility. I mean, clearly on this list, I think is the third best in the top 3 of the effects that you could place, right? So there you go. Kids. Kids was in D, right here, because I thought it was pretty bad, and nothing has changed. I can't get the spot to go. There it goes. Nothing has changed with kids. But, like I've said, always have said, that it only takes one extra unit to come out, or an extra synergy to be viable, to make a unit good, to go from bad to good. I still don't think I still don't think Kids is incredible. However, Zetton has come to the game. Zetton cannot move by himself, or herself, itself. Zetton has an insane explosion that does a ridiculous amount of damage if you can get it to hit the enemy, or the enemy leader. You can use Kids, or Godzilla Earth, to push it up the field. It is a very crazy strat. It is very niche, or niche. I don't think that Kids is going to be, you know, in C tier because of this. But I want to just put Kids at the top of the D tier because of this one particular strategy. It's seeing more play, right? It has a better use. You could always, you know, push, you know, use Kids on your G21s, your G89s, and put them upfield. It's fine. It's whatever, and it's never really affected the gameplay too much. But I think there's a particular case to be made with Kids and Zetton, because Zetton can't move on its own. Where before you're like, okay, well, my units are going to move these 3 spaces anyway in a few seconds, so I really want to spend, you know, the 5 energy or whatever to move Kids up. Or it used to be 6, actually. Kids, I believe, is now 5. I could be wrong, I don't remember, but I think its energy was lowered. So before it was like, okay, well, my G89 is going to move up these 3 spaces anyway. It's not going to be worth it to spend this energy. Now it's become, Zetton cannot move. I can make it move. You know, let me move it upfield. That way, if there's a battle in the midfield and Zetton explodes, I can pretty much guarantee wiping the enemy push. Or if you get lucky and you can cycle your deck fast enough and you can get Kids back to back on Zetton, you can get it to the leader's doorstep. And that final explosion is going to do a crazy amount of damage, right? So, I'm moving Kids up into the top of D just for that one synergy. I think it's really solid if you want to use Zetton. I mean, use Kids with it. I think it's pretty fun. Alright. Next to the moment you guys have been waiting for. These are the 2 units that were added this season, Season 16, Zetton and Mefilas. So, Zetton is going to have a lot of mixed opinions. I really like Zetton. I think Zetton is a defensive powerhouse. Okay? I think Zetton is really, really good on defense. The damage that he puts out is... That seems to be the main problem, is the damage. But you gotta remember, Zetton is attacking every 1.2 seconds, so the damage isn't going to be, like, over the moon, especially considering the explosion damage that Zetton's gonna do. You're doing, like, you know, like 10, then 30, 60, 90% damage to the enemy units when that bar fills up. You're going to do like a maximum of like 40 something, or maybe just 40% damage to a leader if Zetton hits the leader. Zetton's hitbox is insane. You put him It or her, I don't know what Zetton is. I'm just going to say it. You put Zetton on top of your leader, and you are blocking a ton of shots that otherwise your leader would totally eat, right? Zetton is crazy on defense. People are complaining about the cost, which is 8, it is a lot, and the attack damage. But if you're using Zetton more as a defensive structure and utility, not as an attacker, I mean, you can use it as an attacker with kids, like we just talked about. But if you're using Zetton as a defensive tower, it's going to go really great in stall decks, like a Kiryu stall deck. It's just going to go really great on defense. And, you know, we have only a few more days to use it at level 10. I think for this season, especially because obviously we're rating units with how you play them this season, and this season Zetton is rentable at 10. I think Zetton is going into the... For me, I think Zetton is going into the A tier. I'm going to put him right above Kiryu. I think Zetton is a super fun unit. I think there's a lot of versatility there, and it's a shame that maybe for the next 2 or 3 months, not going to see a lot of play solely because of the levels. However, I know we don't take All-Star Battle into consideration in these tier lists, but I really think Zetton's going to be the MVP of All-Star Battles going forward, as long as they keep the Ultraman units in the game. So, Mefilas, or Zetton, mid-A, pretty close to high A. So, like, what's A? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mid-A. I think Zetton is a really good unit, and I think it's just a little bit underutilized. Next is Mefilas. Mefilas is a interesting unit. Has a 2.2 second attack, pretty fast, can stun units with its melee if the units get close enough, and will do a long range beam attack. Rentable at level 10 for gold. That's not very good. So you're not really getting a lot of, you know, use out of Mefilas in the arena this season unless you're getting him into like level 20 or something. I think after this month is over, mine is going to be like level 17 or 18. I thought I had him at 20, but it was significantly lower. Zetton is, or oh my god, they look kind of the same to me. Mefilas is just an alright unit. We have Naranga placed in like lower end of B. I think Mefilas is a little bit better than Naranga. I'm gonna put him right under King Caesar. I really do like the long range capabilities of him. I really do like his stun. I think his cost is a little high though. Actually, I'll put him under Jet Jaguar Singular Point because of this cost. He is a 6 cost gold unit. For one more, you could use a G89, which, yeah, can't hit flying, but still has, like, never really left the main cycle of gameplay. I mean, Gigan Dex, tried and true tactic, rush the G89 down the field. It still works this day. Probably one of, if not the best tank in the game next to Anguirus, right? So, really good. Mefilas is pretty good. But there's a lot that's working against him right now. Like, you know, instead of 6 for him, I could pay 5 for Megaguirus. I could pay 5 for, you know, I could do 4 for Anguirus, right? So I feel like if his cost was lower, maybe if Mefilas was around 5 or 4 cost, if he was 4 cost, he would be seeing a lot more play. His cost is not great, and then for his damage output, it's decent. His long range I like, and his stun I do actually really like a lot. But that is what I got for the tier list. This is season 16 of Godzilla Battle Line, the season of whatever, Perfect Weapon or whatever the hell it's called. The season where we got Zetton and Mefilas, right? The second part of the Shin Ultraman collab. So, what do you guys think? I think that this is probably a good tier list. Honestly, I think this might be one of my better ones. But let me know what you guys think down below. What do you guys think about the brand new characters? And I will catch you all on the next one. Bye-bye.